Okay, hi everyone. Tonight we're talking with Grant, Neil, and Colin from Combo Mash. They have a Kickstarter that's currently up and running called Hextraction, and it's right in the middle of, right in the thick of things. So we're going to talk to them tonight about what's going well, what's not going so well, what they've learned, what recommendations they have, what they're excited about, what they ate for breakfast. We're going to talk about all this kind of good stuff. So let's jump over to the guys. Hey guys, how are you doing this evening?
Doing fantastic.
Yeah, not too bad.
Good.
So what I want to do is start off just by jumping into having a little look-see at your Kickstarter page. I really noticed how slick everything looked, and I'm just going to scroll through it and give people a quick kind of overview of what's going on here as I go past the overview word that popped into my head. I really love that you've got these animated sequences, the little snapshots of the game, lots of sweet graphics. It looks very cohesive in terms of the stylistic look of it. And I know I've been watching the progress over the last few days. You guys have been changing a couple of things up, making it even tighter and even clearer. I love that you've got this 3D element where you can actually, people can participate and have a look at the models, the vehicles and the enemies and stuff in the game and scroll around. I think that's really cool. And then through a lot of the gameplay and just a lot of depth to what you've got in your Kickstarter page, and even a humorous photo of you guys doing a little pretend fisticuff, which I think is really
Well, Hextraction is basically a game where you're the commander of a mercenary crew of miners that are sent down to a planet, basically to strip mine it of all its resources. When you get down to the planet, you encounter all sorts of alien life, all sorts of dangerous environmental effects, such as like comet trails and earthquakes, and it's basically a very unstable planet that you're on, and you have to survive while trying to get these resources for corporations.
This whole project started as a global game jam project only back at the end of January. And then we basically spent a month just talking over the ideas and what the game would become. And it's been a short 7-week development cycle to get it to the point where it is right now.
Probably took about a week or two, with an addendum saying that it's constantly ongoing throughout the entire time that you have it running. I've probably spent countless days since we've launched about a week ago just making updates, changing it, experimenting with different layouts.
The idea behind the gameplay kind of got bumped way down the page, and we brought features and press to the top, which kind of catches people's eye a little bit more and was recommended to us by other similar Kickstarter projects. We've added quite a bit of information on the back end, more of the talking head side of things after the main trailer, in order to give people more of a background onto what the game actually is. And up until this point, a lot of people have come up to us and said, you know, what I love the graphics in the trailer, but I still don't understand what the game is about.
I would probably have to say the high quality of our trailer has been well received on a lot of different forums, on Steam Greenlight. People are loving it there. We put a lot of effort into making sure that we had both the cinematic and the gameplay portions, you know, match in terms of the quality that we would like to deliver in the end product.
A lot of things we thought we had worked out turned out they weren't as worked out as we wanted them to be. The prototype that we built in January, which doesn't really look the same, but kind of is themed with the same elements, was a tower defense game, and that's kind of what this game was born out of. And I think with the short development cycle, we haven't necessarily had a chance to build out graphically all of the RTS and RPG elements that we kind of wanted to present by the time the Kickstarter launched. I think it's kind of a lacking point in our part of being able to show kind of the collecting of resources and the UIs that kind of lead you into believing it's more on the RPG side. So I think it's just kind of a matter of we launched really fast and those parts just aren't shown very explicitly yet.
Perhaps we made a mistake in terms of timing our own release. We basically wanted to launch before E3 and the Steam Summer Sale because we figured as a small indie team, we wouldn't have the opportunity to get as much press coverage if we had launched simultaneously along those lines. At the same time, I myself had a part-time contract that would allow me to work almost full-time on this game, so it was an ideal opportune time to try and launch. Unfortunately, I think our timeline was a little bit too short for what we set out to do. So
People are starting to see that there's a little bit kind of lacking in terms of like all the pieces fitting together at this point. And for us, that's to be expected because we know that it's only been 7 weeks. But for somebody who's coming to the Kickstarter page and like seeing this game for the first time, they likely don't realize that. And so they're just judging it based off of what they're seeing at first and making first impressions. I think if somebody is going to be launching their own Kickstarter, they have to feel like they have a community backing them that's already interested in the game and is really kind of supporting the idea of the game being built out further. Because if you don't have that community already, then you're just kind of throwing it out into the wild, and people are very likely just to start pointing out the flaws. Whereas if you have a community beforehand, I think those people would have already pointed out the major flaws, and you would have had time to fix them.
I think we heavily utilized Twitter and Reddit, and specifically in the game dev forums and Screenshot Saturday posts that go up, both online on the subreddits as well as on Twitter. We basically started posting as soon as we got our first game asset, which was just a little tile, like a hexagon, and just started posting, and getting some feedback that way. We gained a little bit of interest, but again, we were only doing it for about a month before we launched. So, like Neil said, getting the crowd interested early was a bit of a struggle, given that time frame.
If we had had the opportunity to have this trailer out and ready, say 3 months before the Kickstarter actually launched, that probably would have given us enough time to kind of work out any kinks and build a following around the trailer and start getting kind of a growing atmosphere around it before we actually went into raising money.
There might be some traffic coming from Kickstarter to the Greenlight, but the other way around, not at all.
We're seeing, at least in the first week, we saw a lot of people watching the video, but that didn't necessarily translate into people actually buying the game. If you look at the Greenlight statistics that we've got, you can actually see on a graph how well you're doing, how many people are coming to the page, what percent of them say that they actually like your product, versus Kickstarter doesn't necessarily give you that kind of information that you need in order to make decisions about that. All you're really getting is raw stats, like how many people watched your video, and you kind of have to make those conversion questions kind of on your own.
The random people coming through is very minimal in comparison to the avenues that we've actively promoted. Like, I would say it's probably a 90 to 10% split.
We saw a few people at the beginning of the campaign that found it because it was on the front page as listed as a new project. But as kind of the time has gone on over the last week, that kind of organic Kickstarter growth coming in has significantly declined, and it's become purely who we're getting in contact with directly. I've heard different stories about people sharing the preview link for their Kickstarter page, as well as demo builds to writers a week or two, or sometimes 3 weeks before the Kickstarter actually launches. Whereas we didn't really have that kind of timeline to start dealing with that until the Kickstarter had already launched. And by the time people are writing, like by the time you contact people and then they start writing about you, you're talking about a 2 to 3 day turnaround. And so we only really started seeing press come in the door at the end of last week.
We had a bit of a debate about physical items as rewards. Obviously, the big negative to having them is they eat at your budget at the end of the day. But the flip side to that is a lot of people really enjoy having a tangible thing that they can hold and be like, I was a part of this project and I backed them with my money. So the sort of in-between that we decided upon was to go with these add-ons, which were sort of like a token of those people who do really want something in their hands about our game can still get it.
Having all your press and everything ready to go before the Kickstarter happens, one problem, that was one of the mistakes we made where, press started going out as the Kickstarter launched. And if you think that you're going to have time for game development while you're trying to write emails all day long, after you've written emails for 10 hours a day straight for a whole week, you're just kind of like, yeah, that takes a lot longer than you think it's going to take. So
the first piece of advice would be to just do it. Because I think I know a lot of people who don't follow through on their projects or their ideas or concepts, and they just never happen as a result. Whereas we took the approach of, we did this game jam, we were super motivated, we're going to start a company, we're going to build a game, and we're going to throw it out there and see what happens. Now, I mean, our Kickstarter campaign might not be doing so well, but the fact that we were out there and we did it is probably the key thing that I would give to everyone out there.
The concept of Kickstarter, can go in your favor or not, but if you have the passion and the drive and you're willing to put yourself out there, there's a lot of good things that can come of it. You just can't focus on the negative things. You have to use them as constructive criticism and really pull that in and turn it into something that's positive and helps you make everything better. So there's that. Where the Kickstarter stands right now, we have to be comfortable with the fact that it may get picked up or it may not. But in the end, we still have to be passionate about this project, whether the Kickstarter succeeds or not. So let's go back to our roots, keep building the game, keep showing people that this is something that's going to be really cool and fun to play. And I think if we can do that, then we have a chance of actually succeeding.
Guys, thank you very much for your time this evening, and I wish you all the best with your Kickstarter. I wish you all the best with your game development, and I love the approach that you're taking, which is just do it. Just get it out there. Just trust yourself. It doesn't have to be picture perfect when you launch, when you communicate it to people. Listen and improve and listen and improve and work on it, which is certainly a philosophy that I believe in and I tell everyone about. Don't work 2 years and then have this pristine, perfect, amazing thing and you put it out there and people say, well, the fundamental aspect's not fun. Just get it out there and get that feedback. So I love that you guys are doing it. I wish you all the best of success.